Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve ahlul ukdeden min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamünaleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuhu. Inshallah, we will continue our discussion on the 19th word, and we are studying this text as part of our journey in prophethood. What is prophet? What is prophethood? How should we understand it? How it relates to us? Almost, the establishing a base for the belief in prophethood. And we studied the first 6 droplets. Inshallah, we will continue with the 7th droplet. But because 7 and 8 are really relevant, it's not about my insistence on reading multiple parts last a few weeks. This is just a coincidence that I'm moderating, and the 7 and 8 are so intermingled. We cannot separate them, so we will read them together, inshallah. I need a volunteer to read them. Otherwise, Sister Zerin, inshallah, will help us with the 7th droplet, and then Sister Sarah with the 8th droplet, inshallah. Like, this is my, the hope, the prayer. God knows whether the prayers will be answered. Let's start with the 7th droplet, inshallah, and then we can read the 8th.
7th droplet. Now consider how, eradicating in no time at all their evil, savage customs and habits to which they were fanatically attached, he decked out the various wild, unyielding peoples of that broad peninsula with all the finest virtues, and made them teachers of all the world and masters to the civilized nations. See, it was not an outward domination. He conquered and subjugated their minds, spirits, hearts, and souls. He became the beloved of hearts, the teacher of minds, the trainer of souls, the ruler of spirits. Eighth droplet. You know that a small habit like cigarette smoking among a small nation can be removed permanently only by a powerful ruler with great effort. But look, this being removed numerous ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical large nations with slight outward power and little effort in a short period of time. And in their place, he so established exalted qualities that they became as firm as if they had mingled with their very blood. He achieved very many extraordinary feats like this. Thus, we present the Arabian Peninsula as a challenge to those who refuse to see the testimony of the blessed age of the Prophet. Let them each take 100 philosophers, go there, and strive for 100 years. Would they be able to carry out in that time 100th of what he achieved in a year?
Okay. Any quick thoughts? Any quick, comments, if you have any? Anyone else? Any quick thought, like in summary, what this text about? again, from the perspective of we trying to understand what the prophet is, what the prophethood means. 8 and 7 and 8. Just because they are, just because they are so tied. I mean, you would agree that they are very tied, right? Yeah, please.
Assalamualaikum. Just as a response to the invitation to offer what I see as a sort of summary is that, in the cultivation of a habit, or let's say the deletion of a habit, is so difficult in a human being. Like when I look at my life, the habits that I have, to add a new one or to get rid of another one, there's so much difficulty and discipline required and whatnot. And I guess here the emphasis that I'm taking is that only prophetic instruction that transforms one's very outlook of existence, one's very understanding of themselves, understanding of their own reality, only something that looks to such a core value, I guess, and that comes as sort of divine guidance, can accomplish such a transformation as was the case during the prophet's time. And I guess it's also an invitation for us that through that same exact prophetic instruction, like I too can go through such transformations if I make myself an open recipient to that message, to that to those teachings.
Jazakallah khairan. Okay, anyone else? Oh, Yusuf, please go ahead.
Since he is making a comparison in here to highlight the importance of the outcome of what Prophet ﷺ did. So those are people who were wild in their certain habits. The way he is overcoming those habits is not by force or by not some outward change. Sometimes it can happen that you can change the person outwardly by force, but in their spirit, still they are this old previous person that they used to be. The type of conversion that's made on them in very limited time is, he's not only saying that, okay, they were good people, but those people themselves, then they became, as he says, teachers of all the world and masters to the civilized nations. He's not simply referring in here to stories of Sahaba lives only, but saying that those people who has gone through this transformation in the light of Prophet's teaching, then became teachers for civilized nations such as for the day Persia and the Roman Empire. Like these were the two empires, superpowers, and they are being taught by the desert Arabs. Like this was the distinction. And if you think about it, that civilization came all the way to day. So we can then see that this was not a simple transformation. And I think we can compare this to, I'm thinking about American history, like Martin Luther King is like the Black lives.
Give the other example, not Martin.
So like what he was trying to change, and apparently he didn't have power in this sense too, other than people support. But the thing that he was able to achieve was to change the opinion or not really the opinion, but more so the legislation probably against slavery. And still today, can we say that black and white people's opinion about slavery, how much did it change? Is it an outwardly change, or is it like, hey, yeah, of course, that person is my equal? Like, is this really the understanding, or like everybody is equal, but some are more equal than the other type of equal? So, and this is one of the most influential that we see in the society, and we see what the outcome is. But what he achieved was achieved at the type of prophets with slavery as well. I mean, way more than how it's achieved in the States. To the extent that when I was reading listening to Malcolm X's autobiography, then for him it's such an eye-opening experience to go to Hajj and see that black, white, all different colors of people being the same in there, literally being the same, not pretending as if they are the same. So that was achieved way before, and still it's not achieved just in appearance, but in a more substantial way.
So, oh yeah, okay, go ahead, please. Otherwise,
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can look at it in this way, because like we cannot say Islam abolished slavery, because slavery was practiced by Muslims like centuries, if not millennia after the Prophet has died. And I feel like, so here, like the impact he's talking about, I think it was at a personal level, and not more like a community or legislative ways. At least that's how I understand, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me if we talk about it from like a legislative perspective, because even like the Muslim empires that came afterwards, they weren't like the best when it came to human rights, or like slavery was very common. Even other things, even like things that Islam had forbidden, but it was still practiced during the Muslim empire. That's why I think it was more at the personal level, like certain people that were not chosen, but like their like change or the impact on their personality from before Islam to after Islam is like very, yeah. I think, I don't know.
are there any comments for that? If no, I have one. Oh, I have the one. I think you already gave an answer to your question when you say Muslim or Islamic empires, right? So in Islam, if we are serious about study Quran and so on, it's kind of, first of all, I apologize in advance for my bluntness here and frankness. I will be. Okay, thank you. It's kind of oxymoron to, and I'm not talking about what you say. I'm talking about what we have in history, because what you say is true. Historically, it's a fact. It's kind of an oxymoron to have an empire which claims to be a Muslim empire, because the religion is there to get rid of the idea of empire from the earth. When we look at the life of the Prophet, there are all these narrations, right? We usually take them very light. When an outside visitor visits the Medina, let's say, to check out what they're doing, they would have difficulty to recognize who is prophet, who is the leader, and who is not. Can you imagine such a thing being there with any empire? all our, like I will give examples from my history. All our empires, the Ottoman ones, they lived in their palaces and so on. Being not able to recognize who is the Sultan, you really need to be someone like Huda, right? Otherwise, they would put it in your eyes, force it. So anyway, we can give many examples like that. But the reason I said that, when we, like within such a circle, when we study Islam, when we study prophethood, we should be very careful when we make any reference to history, because we always have the question, is this the history of Islam, or is it a history of yet another nation that happens to be believing in Allah? We have to make the distinction. Most, if not all, of the application in these empires and so on, they are all, I mean, when you look in details, they all go back to their own customs. That, for most of it, Islam tried to destroy. Islam came to a nation of Jahiliyyah, right? The darkness, illuminated it, and then darkness came again. I know this is something, we are not accustomed to, like we sometimes be proud of our history because of the big kingdoms, powerful empires, and so on and so forth. If you want to be proud, again, I'm not talking to you. If you want to be proud, a powerful nation, you should go and be proud. But you cannot confuse it with the pride of being Muslim. Two different things. And actually, like I was about to give the reference in the text, when he says in the 8th droplet, we change the habits from intractable, fanatical, large nations. Intractable is like a stubborn, very stubborn and fanatical large nations. They are fanatical about what? Their power, their nationalities, their kavm, right? They wouldn't call it nation, but they would call it as, what is it, the English for kavm? Tribes, yes, for their tribe. They are fanatical about that. They are fanatical about what? Their customs, their clothings, how they treat, let's say, women. I mean, women is just an example. It's a status. I'm a man. How dare you can talk to me, like they would say. They are fanatical about these. So Islam came to remove all these, succeeded. What happened afterward? All these, the things that are removed by Islam came back. Which almost true. I'm saying almost because I'm not a historian, but to the extent I studied at least the life of the Prophet and the companions around him, I don't see any, let's say, the instance of quote unquote slavery as we understand today. Like a slave, let's say, and at that time would be able to marry a daughter of another companion. Obviously, it's not the same thing that we are, talking about. Among the companions and the Prophet, we will see that these people were treated equally in every regard. If you are treated equally at every level of the social the fabric from the marriage to the voting, right? So, for instance, when they came together, make istishare, like a discussion and so on, they wouldn't say that, oh, Bilal, you were, the slave before. His opinion equal to another one's opinion. So, from that perspective, I can say, the slavery was abolished at that time, but let's assume it was not. I mean, at least as an economical system, right? Obviously, as you rightly, mentioned, the emphasis here is not Islam bringing a new system of government or new system of the market, but rather changing the definitions. What is government? What is market? Right? What is marriage? What is woman? What is man? Another day, a teacher of mine, he was saying, if you study the life of the Prophet, you will see when he, for instance, went to the Mecca, quote unquote, conquer, right? There's no fight. That's interesting. He goes there and then he asks opinions of the people, including, like, he's kind of voting, right? He's asking for their allegiance. Yes, accepting their allegiance. Like, it's kind of, are you accepting me as the ruler, right? He asked to whom? Only men? No. He asked to women as well. The first example of women voting, right? If you look from that perspective, equality is everywhere between child and the old person. The Ali radiallahu anhum, sorry, he was, participating in everything. He was so young. Equality among ages, equality among sexes, equality among whatever, skin colors, and so on. Even from that perspective, I would say, if we are talking about as author says, Asr Saadat, like the time of the Prophet, we can easily say that, yes, he did change all this. What happened afterwards? It's the doing of the kings, which is abolished in Islam anyway.
I understand your point, but like, where do we start reading our history from? Because if you look at the caliphates like Hazrat Abu Bakr, Hazrat Umar, all of those caliphates had slavery, concubines, everything that was a part of that society, like a big part of that society, I would say. So those are the direct companions of the Prophet from whom we have to learn the most, I would say, or like how to implement those things in our practical life. So as when we are reading history, I don't know if it takes us away from the topic, but I just want to understand, like, are we not supposed to see that history or like how it was implemented after the Prophet? Because like our life is, I would say, for me it's similar to that point, is like there is no prophet among us. So I would see how the companions lived after the Prophet or like implementing those things. So where do we start looking at our like history in that sense?
Have to agree on what, like, who says they had concubines? But anyways, go ahead. No, I don't think so. I mean, we can talk about
it. There's one interesting hadith narration. Prophet ﷺ told to Aisha radiallahu anha, pointing to Kaaba. Okay, so hadith narration, Prophet ﷺ talks to Aisha radiallahu anha after Mecca conquered. So pointing to Kaaba, so he says, if your tribe did not came out of Jahiliyyah recently, I would have demolished Kaaba, redo it, and make two doors, one in the east, the other one on the west, as Ibrahim made it. Yeah. So that's a very interesting narration, because Prophet ﷺ didn't do something because of practical reasons. Right? He says, your tribe made it like this so that only the honorable ones are going to enter Kaaba, like the Kaaba's door is up. What does this tell us about Prophet's practices? This is a very interesting narration. So the way Quran is introducing, this is what's supposed to be done at the moment, but the society is not ready because they just come out of Jahiliyyah. Prophet says, I'm not going to do this. And actually, a few years later, Kaaba was demolished because of this narration. One of the Sahaba, I think Zubayr, demolished Kaaba, built it like Prophet ﷺ pointed to. But then after Yazid, not Yazid, I mean, soldiers of Yazid took over Kaaba, they destroyed Kaaba again and made it the way it was before. So this is a very interesting history, actually, because Prophet is saying that this is how it's supposed to be done. But he does not do it. Same thing with slavery as well. Like the way how the legislation was passed down, and in practice, how he encourages, and also getting slaves is not something like this guy looks like a very quiet guy. I go and capture him and he becomes my slave. It's not like this anymore. Because getting somebody as slave is only as war captives, and keeping war captives is, even today, is for exchange of war prisoners and whatnot. It is there. So for a reason it was kept, but totally abolishing slavery at the time would have been collapse of the economy. So the way it was put was made so that over time it was going to decay. Like the way Prophet established it is so that it was going to decay over time. But then if we question what has happened and why it did not totally get decayed over time, then becomes a legitimate question. So this is where we can also look at the history of these 30 years right after Prophet ﷺ, because right after Prophet ﷺ passed away, there happened this, what's it, irtidad, like so people are turning away from religion. Apostasy, but what sort of apostasy was it? Like people in Mecca or Medina didn't apostate. Like the satellites were turning away. What does this mean? Were they rejecting the religion itself? Or were they didn't accept religion that much at this moment anyways? The point was, those are people, like in general, how it happened. So I guess we need to do a little bit of history here. So the way Arabian Peninsula was conquered by just a small bunch of Muslims, because they were not strong. But how was it that they conquered the Arabian Peninsula? Was, as Brother Birkan was highlighting, the idea of kingdom was being abolished, because there's a strong leader of tribe who is holding the power in his hand, and then he's just handing it over to the next guy and whatnot. So the power was there. The way Islam spread in Arabia was, they were just going and threatening this ruling class. Otherwise, people are happy to get rid of those ruling class. But now that the central authority changed because the ruler Prophet passed away, and then they say our allegiance was to Muhammad, not to Abu Bakr, then this is what this ridda means. Like they are saying that we are turning away. We are not giving our allegiance to Abu Bakr. This is why then the wars started happening. So Islam again found itself in an environment of war again. So this is why taking captives would be there in this case too. Like since there is an active war at that time, this is how it went with the for caliphs. But once things started going back to kingdom, then it's changing the color of everything. Because now nationalism kicked in and rulership kicked in, and people started going back to their factory settings of nationalism idea. So in this sense, what shall we see in this picture? Because along the same lines, somebody came up and gave fatwa saying that, oh, at Prophet's time, we had slaves. For Caliph's times, we had slaves, therefore it is permissible. Like it became like a law, like somebody coming and saying that I gave fatwa. That's why it stayed in a sense, not totally eradicated. But I can even ask a question. Today, in one of the most Islamic states, apparently, Saudi Arabia, who used to be super hardcore Islamist up until 10 years ago. The same kingdom is doing all sorts of indecency in there. The very same scholars who used to be hardcore Muslims are not saying a single word today. Does this legitimize what the current Bin Salman do? So sometimes that's why I would like to put a question mark, and we should put that question mark in our head when certain ulama was giving fatwa for the kings. They might have been called Shaykh al-Islam or whatever, but this doesn't make whatever they say as legitimate and as part of Islam. We should have those questions, because like what I do see in Prophet's life and how he made it in a way, because Prophet lived among people. That's why that narration is important. He didn't say that, well, this is the truth, demolish Kaaba, we will make it. Like what he is introducing is for life, for people. And he says, this doesn't make sense right now, but let's open the door so eventually it's going to be made. This being said, if somebody who comes later, as Yazid did, so in Prophet's time it was not done, so it's not going to be done, this is a stupid idea. And if somebody defends this in the name of piety and doing what Prophet did, Prophet didn't do this for a reason, was opening doors for you, likewise for the slave. So eventually, if somebody comes up and, as Kadir was pointing out, to in Prophet's time there were slavery, so we should be able to do the slavery today, we should then say this is a perspective that doesn't understand what the religion is about. And yet there are such scholars. So this is why we need to have sometimes a question mark over what is located there, how power is poisoning even the scholarship.
In case someone wanted to continue that. Sorry. No, I was just looking at the seventh droplet, the last sentence of it, where it says, the Prophet ﷺ became the beloved of hearts, the teacher of minds, the trainer of souls, the ruler of spirits. And it had me thinking about how, like in my whole educational career experience, even if there were, classes that you didn't enjoy, you still kind of put in the effort and got through them. But especially when when the teacher, the educator, or professor was beloved to me, like that was the only motivation I needed, right? And if they were not beloved, it was very difficult to care about what they were teaching as well. So there's this, I was just thinking about the relationship between someone being a beloved to your heart, to the efficacy of what they are trying to teach or transmit to you. And I'm trying to think about how can the Prophet become a beloved to my heart, such that, like, okay, if I study the message more, does he become more beloved? But then at that point, well, I got the message. Do I need him to become a beloved? Or no, the more beloved he becomes to you, the more the message, you will understand the message, in fact, and It will transform you. Is it like, do we experience a, he was the beloved of hearts, teacher of minds, trainer of souls, ruler of spirits for the Sahaba, for like those around him. So how do I experience that in my life? Is it by studying the seerah? Is it because I know that I can look at the message, but how do I kind of place him there as something that makes the message transformative and not just as an unnecessary intermediary?
Jazakallah. And I think this is a one important point here, which also tying back to the earlier discussions. He became the beloved of hearts, the teacher of minds, trainer of souls, the ruler of spirits. This is like a complete transformation of a person. And it's not like just changing their clothing, their social relationships, what is allowed, what is not allowed, and so on. When you look at the people, the companions, the close companions, let's say, their life before and after Prophet, you see a complete transformation there. But we keep the example of giving the example of Umar radiallahu anhu, how he was, just the opposite of what he was after. But even if with the other prophets, the companions as well, you see a complete transformation in their life. So from that aspect, she gave me some stuff in my mind. Sorry, just force feeding me. From that perspective, he's introducing these changes in the society, a complete transformation of a human being. So if we have questions like Qadir asked, whether something is allowed or not, like you can ask it from different perspectives. You can ask it from a, what is the word, jurist? Oh, come on, give me something simple. Jurisprudential, whatever perspective. Yeah, maybe it is, allowed or not. Or what you should be doing in reality, look at the life of the Prophet, his close companions, and how they understood it. Same goes with everything, like whether you would marry with multiple, the people or not. It's not the question of whether it is allowed or not. If you are looking from this perspective, you are already doomed. Like you misunderstood the idea of marriage anyway. Look at the life of the Prophet, how he understood the marriage, what marriage meant to him, to his companions, how this understanding allowed, quote unquote, multiple marriages, this understanding, and then try to implement something in your life. Not just a number, exactly. The same goes, everything. Slavery and whatever. Look at their lives. This is your history. Their life is your history, not the king's. I think it's a highlight, the emphasis is so important. The moment it became kingdom, everything was destroyed. All the books, all the, the fatwa, as Yusuf said, and so on, were under the light or the pressure of the kings. You cannot trust them. You have to go back. Well,
I think I would just, I agree with
yeah,
this,
please.
but I would like to put a little caution in there. So not because it's not as black and white, because this is still what connects me with what was before. But because there had been scholars which were in prison just because they didn't go with the king. So, and especially Imams of Ahlul Bayt was under such pressure as well. So, but we have to keep, whenever we are considering what was said, we have to consider why did this person say this and under which circumstances. Applying this filter will be beneficial. So, because otherwise, I mean, it's not like, oh, in one day these guys become totally evil and what they say is totally junk. It shouldn't be understood to that extreme. But on the other hand, this person says such a thing, but it doesn't fit. Why? And does it really look like a proper way of understanding Quran or prophetic life? Or was that there was some external force and reasoning? It might be tribalism kicking back in, nationalism, or kings wanting to preserve their power. And then this idea is being interpreted in a super duper awkward way and being justified and accepted and became the history because victors are writing history. So in this case, then this is where we should put a question. Otherwise, this way is going to backfire.
Yes, that's a good point. And I was about to give this anecdote. The author, it's great you mentioned the Ahl Bayt. In the part, he's studying the Ahl Bayt, the family of the Prophet and the lineage and so on. He said something very interesting. He said they were all in prison, being on the, let's say, the behind the curtains all the time when you look at the history. And he says they were protected. They were protected from the Qadr perspective. They were protected from being corrupted by the power. They never became the part of the power in the history. An author says they were protected from being corrupted from this power. So yeah, there is always a scholarly lineage, of course, tying back to the Prophet, tying us back to the Prophet. We have to find this lineage. We have to find this scholarly path. We just need to be careful, as Yusuf said, when we talk about the Islamic history. So what I'm saying is not about the Islamic scholarship, but Islamic quote-unquote history. Go ahead, please.
Again, in reference to this last sentence of the seventh droplets, like he became beloved of hearts, teacher of minds, trainer of souls, the ruler of spirits. Like think about a person that you keep consider as an esteemed teacher, scholarship, and whatnot. So probably I would say either this person is a very good person who explains things theoretically. Another person might be a nice, kind person, like that I love the person, but when it comes to learning teachings, I prefer somebody else. So in this case, the Prophet's what he introduces is educating my mind, educating my heart, educating my spirit. So in this case, I am finding everything from that education. Alternatively, what do we do nowadays is we have like philosophers as intellectual teachers. In the current society, we try to find life coaches, which is going to train my body. And then we are trying to find a community of some sort where I'm going to entertain my like heart. Like this is where we are trying to get things from around. But the way Prophet reigns and becomes in every facet of life is a unique perspective to me.
Okay, let's take this text to ourselves now. Let's forget about, not to forget, but so far we read it as a historical text, like he came and changed the habits of the people of that time. So it also tell us then that our relationship with the Prophet, our relationship with the message he brought, should be such that after we starting understanding it, starting studying it and so on, our lives should change. to change drastically, even. Right? I know it's really hard to accept for us that, oh, I'm already have the best qualities, I'm already Muslim, I don't have any bad habits and so on. Everything I do is for God and God only. Inshallah, this is the case. If there's a tiny amount of our lives that is not that way, then it should be at least abolished, right, by the Prophet. And it's interesting, it says, with a slight power, little effort. Like as we get closer to the message, to the, let's say, the lifestyle, quote unquote, that he introduced, as we get closer to that, getting rid of these habits should be with little effort, maybe. If not, it also gives us the measure of how far we are from living the message. Yeah.
Educated very slow. Slowly in the sense that it was a very intense 22-year education by a person who was living a message. It was not like, I guess I understand the topic, but I'm not able to implement it. No, the messenger was thoroughly the message in the first place. So it's like walking back in the sense. And he lived and within Salah. One of the reasons that right after Prophet passing away, people starting to just go other ways is because there was an imbalance in terms of numbers. Like the exponential growth of Islamic administration was that people, one person enters and says, okay, what is it? These are the five, like believe in God, like 5 pillars of Islam, 6 pillars of Iman. You agree with this? I agree with this. I mean, this person is Muslim, like, but how Muslim is this person relative to a person who went through prophetic education as Sahaba did? So this is why there was a very exponential increase in size, yet the amount of those newcomers were not as strong. So this started one of the reasons of splits, early splits. Now I need to ask the same question to myself. I say 5 pillars of Islam, we agree, I agree. 6 pillars of Iman, we agree, I agree. So technically I'm Muslim, but am I, or did I go through what Sahaba have as an education process? So this is something that I need to ask myself. Because from outside, there's no way to distinguish whether, like, put some sort of a litmus test on me, put it on your else and say, oh, he looks more Muslim. No, but how much did I go through that education? This is why I think I was reading a verse. It's saying that we revealed Quran to you in clusters, not clusters, but groups. There was a word like this. And then we revealed it to you وَنَزَلْنَا تَنْزِيلًا, like stage by stage. Quran is revealed stage by stage. Did I go through Quran group by group, stage by stage in my education? Sahaba went through Quran's education in life as Quran was revealed to them in life, stage by stage, by digesting. So if I'm not going through this as such in my life, then I should question where am I in this education.
And again, like what I understand is that this is not an optional thing. Like you need to go through this transformation. You need to go through this education. Like just because you were born in a certain society does not make you automatically a chosen person, happen to be a Muslim from the birth. You already have the iman to utmost level just because you're born somewhere within a certain family. It doesn't work like that way. I mean, we know it firsthand, right? Just because I'm a part of a certain culture, it doesn't mean that my choices in life are driven by my belief in God. They are mostly driven by what? The things that I'm fanatically attached to. My nation, my gender, my whatever, status. So the Prophet is the one who replaces all these with the pillars of the Iman. So every choice then I make would be based on my belief in God, my belief in hereafter, my belief in prophets, and so on. This transformation I need to go through. So the end of the 8th droplet, he says, okay, let them each take 100 philosophers, go there and strive for 100 years. Would they be able to carry out in that time 100 of what he achieved in a year? So this is kind of opposite of what we usually think. People are getting better and better by time. Our science, philosophy, whatever we want to call it, is making us better people. The people of that time are much superior to any person at that time, both intellectually. We know a lot of things they didn't know. The way we behave is more civilized. Isn't that so? From cavemen to the man of today, there seems to be a really monotonical increase in every aspect. So why? What is talking about? What's going here?
I was thinking of like what we've studied on for now. We're trying to like nurses teaching us of our prophet Islam. And then this week it seemed like last week I remember we were talking about how when you looked at him both as a messenger and also as like a, let's say, a worshiper, he reflected or he lived both of them. Like he didn't just have a message that he didn't live. Like he lived the message. He also preached the message. He taught the message. And now this week we're talking about how this message affected the people around him. And like we see, historically there could be different ways it's been given, but regardless of whatever the details are, we see like there's a big change among people that's happened. And in many ways, this change has been very bright and very good. And there's a lot of benefits and things we see, the wisdom we see in those changes. So we see that the message, he didn't just live it, but he also, the people around him were also affected by it. And this is all things that we see. And I was thinking why we're even studying these things, why we're going to history. And I think at least for the philosopher case, like last week, what we studied, how he lived it. He didn't just preach a message, he lived it, and you saw the benefit of it on him. Like you saw how it affected his life and how it made his life better. Like it wasn't just an empty message. Like it was actually something that you saw had impact on his life. But then when I think of a philosopher, let's say someone just studying something or just theorizing or coming up with ideas, I've listened. I remember once I was listening to this podcast about someone who spent his whole life studying stress, doing lab experiments on stress, thinking about why stress happens, this and that. And at the end, the person was like, "Oh, so since you've been studying stress your whole life, you must be very good at dealing with stress over the years." And he's like, "No, I'm awful at it." Like he says, his response is, "I still get severe anxiety before talks or presentations or papers." And there I was just like, okay, you study stress and you write so many papers, but it doesn't help you. So why should I bother? And I was just thinking like a philosopher in the same way, or others, or like if you're just preaching a message that is not affecting your life or is not impacting you or helping you, then it will not impact anyone else. Like it can't help anyone else. So coming back to the Prophet ﷺ and what Nursi is saying about the 100 philosophers, we have a prophet who lived his message and impacted the people around him because he lived his message. And then a philosopher or just someone just preaching a message or theorizing or just saying empty words, if it doesn't even help their own life, and if they're just philosophizing by themselves, it's not going to help their own life, then they can't impact others. So it makes a lot of sense to me that, it doesn't matter if you bring 1,000, 1,000,000, like as long as if your own message is not helping you, then it's not going to impact others and you can't change others. So yeah, that's what
Okay, we can also continue with the 9th droplet if there are no other comments, questions. I see people don't want to talk about transformation. Okay, please go ahead. Yeah, you can take it.
At what point do we start applying the filters? Because
Do we start with?
applying the filter, we're like, oh, under what conditions was this fatwa given? What was the ruler? Because like majority of the rulings we have, they are somewhat based on history. Like, okay, this imam or this like scholar back then did this based on this. So extrapolating that to today's conditions, we can say this. Because I feel like it's a very slippery slope if you start like questioning all the authority that these very prominent scholars have and who have spent like essentially their whole lives doing this. And like if every lay person starts to do this, then like I feel like it's a very slippery slope. Like you can go down like weird rabbit holes where you start questioning everything at that point. And like even with the Saudi Arabia example, I feel like silence on the issue is one thing, but if someone issues a fatwa saying whatever is happening is good, then I don't think there will be wide scale acceptance of that fatwa, like in the Islamic jurisprudence community. So just a little like more clarity on that.
I agree with the part of every lay person questioning this, but if a person gets troubled by it, then what should we do with this person is one question. Think of it this way. The majority of people in this room are coming from Sunni tradition. In Sunni tradition, the general opinion about Shia is what? Look at it from the reverse angle. Within Shia tradition, what is the general opinion about Sunni tradition's rulings? Who is right, who is wrong?
Wait, let's clarify that.
What would a Sunni tradition person would say about Shia? They would say that, oh, there are this and that interpretation because of this political leanings and whatnot. Equally rightfully, a Shia person would say that, oh, within Sunni tradition, there was this, and then many rulings, many, not all, some came because of this. As someone from the, let's say, Sunni clique, let's call it this way, or Sunni tradition, we are quite comfortable that, yeah, Shia guys are like, well, I mean, of course, there are political leanings that they did this and that distorted. How about applying it to myself? So, and especially as we are coming to the age where now ChatGPT is everybody's sheikh. And even whatever I say, probably half of you are already Googling or asking it to ChatGPT whether what I say is right or wrong. People are already questioning many of those stuff. So what I am saying should be heard in this context. Like people are sooner or later or already saying that like slavery, Islam, doesn't make sense. Either I will pretend as if I didn't hear it, or when the topic comes, I'm going to escape from it. Or I would say, well, let's face this, what was going on really? And now that I turn and look at Prophet's life and then see that things were set up so that it was going to get eradicated, but then somehow it got officialized somehow in some way, yet in today's world, no Muslim country, no whatsoever, is applying slavery either. So what happened? Like, did we learn abolishment of slavery from United States or what? So if you were to ask the same question 200 years ago, you would have said that whatever we are saying is wrong today, we would have said this wrong 200 years ago as well. So long story short, once you start questioning it, and in the current climate, people do question this, then we would say, put this filter over there to the extent that you can, because there is room for such issues. But this shouldn't give you the flexibility, of course, of I can say whatever I would like to say. Because, I mean, this is more so of an arrogance than, like, the distinction I'm trying to make is, in one, the person is genuinely bothered by how the interpretation is coming out. Either I would like to hear a proper explanation of why slavery is okay, or I would say, this doesn't go well with how Islam or Quran is established, but if somebody is making it officially okay, then maybe there's some problem with this ruling. This is my standpoint. But another alternative there is, though. If from this, the way I'm trying to present it, if somebody says, wow, this gives me some agency, and I can do whatever I want, so then I can get any corner of Islam and say, this doesn't fit my wish or whims, and I'm going to interpret it as such. In that case, I would like to invite ourselves to common sense and also being less arrogant and more humble. To give you an example, I observe as I am teaching data structures class, there's a specific type of student that happens 1 or 2 each term. The student is listening to me with this, like eyes are a little, squinted, like waiting for me to make a mistake, and then, or say something less sure, so that comes this weird smile and asks a question. The purpose of that student is not to understand. And that student is of a decent intellect level as well, like smart student. But the purpose of such a student is to prove to himself that he's better than the teacher. Is he? No way. He's just an undergrad. I mean, maybe after 10 years he can if he puts the effort. But it looks like he's putting the effort in the wrong place, is what I'm trying to say. So the way this question mark should be put is for those who are genuinely bothered by, I'm not able to learn this and this doesn't work. But if there's this other type which is trying to find a room for themselves, yes, I mean, that is out of question. I agree with you, that's a slippery slope, but this person is already willing to slide anyways. So I don't know what I can do for such a mindset. So, I mean, this distinction should be made in there.
No, that was very important point. And I think we should highlight, like we should separate the scholarly lineage and the cultural, the progression. That's we should separate. Like when we say, go ahead, please. No.
I was talking to the chaplain, and like there is generally a tendency in MSAs in many places that it becomes a safe haven for the board. Like whomever is at the MSA board, the Islam that they live is the truth, and then MSA becomes this Islam. So he was referring to some examples from his other universities and whatnot. One conclusion that I said, oh, that's a very good point, and this is a good step to say that to be able to say Turkish Islam or Pakistani Islam, if somebody can utter this is a realization, saying that, yes, you're right, you are talking about the national version of Islam, which is a nice mixture of your culture, which was there even before Islam, and still it survived as it was somewhat compatible. But it became so boldened than the Islam itself that you're not able to really distinguish whether this is Islam or this is Pakistan or Turkish. Because you see this when you go to Hajj quite a bit, where like others' behavior sounds weird, and people start gossiping about this is what happens with Turkish Hajis. When they come back, they gossip about our Islam is the best. But they are so dirty. This is dirty, that's dirty. We are very clean. This is what happens with the Turkish Hajis. We are the cleanest guys on earth. So, what is right? What is wrong in this case? So, being able to distinguish this is also an important question mark to be put over there. Even in the recitation, like Turks has ü when they recite Quran, and then Arabs would say, what ü are you talking here about? So this is Turkish recitation. Someone we need to learn it from them. We don't make it up ourselves. But putting that question mark in there is somewhat.
Okay, to tying back to our main topic, understanding the Prophet and so on, then yeah, whatever the topic is, we should try to understand the change, the transformation the Prophet brought. Okay, so that should be our target that we want to reach, not how it was implemented in a certain part of the history. What change Prophet brought, how Prophet lived it, what type of people he, I would say generated, but you understand, like what type of the people, the companions became. I think that should be the target when we talk about anything Islamic. We don't have much time for the 9th droplet. I mean, we could read it. If there are no other comments, I will suggest reading the 9th droplet. Just before I forget, an anecdote. It's really interesting that the scholars that we respect today, at least some of them, if not all of them, were imprisoned because of the way they fight for the truth they believe. So it's a good indication that we can trust them. Who wants to read the 9th droplet? Abdurrahman, you say? Okay, let's go with Abdurrahman.
Also, you know that an insignificant man of small standing among a small community in a disputed matter of small importance cannot tell a small but shameful lie, brazen faced, and without fear, without displaying anxiety or disquiet enough to inform the enemies at his side of his deception. Now look at that being. Although he undertook a tremendous task which required an official of great authority and great standing in a great situation of great security, can any contradiction at all be found in the words he uttered among a community of great size in the face of great hostility concerning a great cause of matters of great significance? With great ease and freedom, without fear, hesitation, diffidence, or anxiety, with pure sincerity, great seriousness, and in an intense, elevated manner that angered his enemy. Is it at all possible that any trickery should have been involved? God forbid. It is not, but revelation inspired. The truth does not deceive, and one who perceives the truth does not deceive. His way, which is truth, is free from deception. How could a fancy appear to one who sees the truth to be the truth and deceive? How could a fancy appear to one who sees the truth to be the truth?
I'm looking at the original as well. He's simply saying that a deception cannot deceive a person who is trying to reach the truth, or the person who loves the truth. So if your goal is to reach the truth and you are sincere about that and you only care about that and so on and so forth, he says a deception cannot deceive you.
Or like maybe like if you see the truth and know.
Okay, another important point about the prophet then. Prophet, I'm talking about like a prophethood, like it's an idea, then is the one who is so certain about the message that he brought. There's no deception in his own life, in his own understanding. He's certain about it. So with ease, he explains it. With ease, he talk about it. Like to better understand, compare it with yourself. Somebody comes and challenge your belief. How do you feel? You feel anxious, threatened, right? What am I going to say? What if they mention about this and that from the history? What if they talk about this, the weakest point of my belief, whatever it is? You would have this anxiety. For him, he didn't have any anxiety. He was so easygoing, let's say, with his beliefs and so on, because easygoing is not the right word, sorry. No.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I think this is, in my opinion, it's not such a strong argument because, for example, I would give an example. What's a counter example? I mean, the one that comes immediately is very easygoing, confident, like education. So,
maybe it has some value, but I don't see that it has. No, but it's, I mean, it's pretty, but it's also like pointing to the fact that, he said things without hesitation, anxiety, even if people lie, they're just scared. And that's
I mean, I can imagine, let's say, such a hypothetical example. I agree with you. But in practical life, I haven't seen such thing, to be honest. Like with the example you gave, for instance, he's easily getting angry. Say something against what he believes and whatever, he gets angry. He says something stupid. In the person you gave as an example. My entire life is full of such, the examples. Again, I can imagine such a hypothetical example that the person is so certain. There are such spokesperson of atheism. They seem to be so cool and so on. Until, you are also a cool, calm, and say something sensible, not get into historical debates and so on. And they don't have anything to say. They try to change the topic, make it, bring it to the point that they can only, a point that, the only point that they can argue about and so on. In practice, again, I never seen such an example.
I feel like the droplet is not just emphasizing I mean, it is part of it. It's emphasizing the confidence or ease with which certain truths were declared. But I feel like, especially towards the end, there's this emphasis on whether there was any deception or trickery or cheat to be found in both the words that were uttered and the people that accepted them, right? Like, did they have, I mean, the sentence say, the truth does not deceive, and one who perceives the truth is not deceived. So, like, I guess there wasn't a sense of naiveness by those who accepted it, like, nor a sense of, just a play of words or, because as you said, like, sometimes some people speak so confidently, so forcibly, and with such fancy words that you can't even comprehend the full content of what they're saying, but just their aura or charisma will be enough, right? Like, we find this all the time, like, preachers of all religions, and people flock to them in masses. But then, so when you have all these different factors put together, that's hard to find, I guess, right? Both the truthness of the validity of the content, the way in which it's being delivered, the mannerisms, the behavior of the one. Like, this droplet I see is just like, oh, it's just one other thing that I should keep in mind when looking at everything else, and that thing is also like not readily found. So
also ties this to the fact that this is revelation. If it was not revelation, how comfortable would I be about anything? And like, I think about a topic that I have worked on for several years. I became an expert of this matter itself. But when I'm making a presentation from among those experts of this field, still I would be a little cautious when I'm speaking. Because how they will take it from it. Maybe this guy is a little more knowledgeable about what I'm about to say. Therefore, I would be very cautious when I speak, especially to the experts. It's easier to speak to common people, maybe, because I can hide it with my authority if I am an authoritative person about this topic. But in the case of Messenger, he was not an authoritative person of any sort either. So the way then such a person speaks with discomfort and not challenge, because what is at stake in here is either he is truthfully delivering the speech of God, or he is the worst of the liars. Like this is the level of right or wrong. What's at stake in here is a huge difference. Now we are speaking about a con artist who's pretending as if speaking on behalf of God. This is either this or it's pure revelation, and the comfort is coming from the fact that the Creator has given me the speech and I'm delivering it with that. Because if I have this comfort, whatever I say is going to be matching the reality 100%. With that comfort, I can say whatever. But if I am 100% liar on the other extreme, how comfortable can I be? And depending on the audience, how can I preserve this? So that is an important distinction to make.
And the topic, like the subject matter, it says, so concerning a great cause and matters of great significance. So it's not a topic in which you can make small mistakes, nobody would care, it wouldn't change the outcome. No, it's a great significant, the matter of great significance. Even a tiny mistake would change things, and he's still very confident and like reflecting to you, showing to you that he knows what he's talking about, and not because he's so intelligent and so on, because it's coming from, as Yusuf said, it is the revelation. It's coming from the creator of the universe. He knows, not the prophet. So we see that in narrations. Somebody asks a question to the Prophet, ﷺ, and he says, okay, I will tell you when the answer comes. Right? It's not that, okay, I know, let me give you the answer. He waits for the revelation. There's one narration, probably everyone knows, his promises, kind of like, okay, come next day, I will give you the answer. These Jewish people, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, of the Medina, they come to ask about, the things like the spirit, to two more things, like they ask for three things. And he says, okay, I will answer you, let's say the next day. He's expecting that the revelation will come and give the answer. When the revelation does not come, he does not give an answer. He says, I cannot give the answer. The answer didn't come to me. And then they mock him and so on. Anyway, so he's certain not because he's so intelligent. What is the word? Like witty, yeah. Like he's so quick, smart, and so on. I mean, he was, but that's not the point. He's certain because it is revelation. And I think, at least to me, this is important. So it also tells me that you should look for, like when you look for answers, right? You should look for the sources where you see certainty. Not as defining the boundaries or giving you a clear rule, but you listen to whatever they say, or listen to read the message, and you say, yes, this makes sense in its entirety. There's no gap there. You should be able to, have such a sense. That's what you should be looking for. Right, please.
The way he was looking for the ministry of life and death. He better not talk about public community. He is not coming from me. He's not rich. He doesn't have the choice to work for something that he is in. He's just risking his life for no good reason. Whatever he utters is against any reason. Why would they like to do that? You have nothing but knowledge. There's no sense of winningness. That why are we getting into if this was an idea for lives, then there would have been better or more peaceful ways of achieving this goal rather than going directly to the justice society because those people were not good. Not for attempts have been made to kill them. That is why there's this great threat that's present.
Yeah, abolishing, all these the terrible things in the society, like saying that no, you don't have authority over other people, and you are telling this to the, the chief of the tribe. Let's say you don't have any authority. Imagine, you're telling this to the king of whatever nation. I'm sorry, but you don't have any authority. Nobody appointed you. That's the matter, like he's talking about. Equality, like equity, not equality, equality of people, regardless of their gender, regardless of their social status. It's not easy to speak. Okay, so we are almost out of time. We will conclude it. Just today, I was like, there were a few papers on my desk, and today I saw the title of one of them, which happens to be tied to these tags. The title was "All Models Are Wrong, but Some of Them Are Useful." Okay? So this is about the computational models and so on and so forth. So this is the alternative, let's say, the revelation, certainty in revelation versus uncertainty of our ideas. And this is usually the default mode in our society, right? I mean, nobody knows the truth. There is no such thing. Everybody says, whatever we say is wrong to some extent and right to some extent, but some of them are useful, so we should find the useful ones and implement them. But here, the author says, no, there was a certainty in his message. He was certain about what he said. There's no such thing as, yeah, maybe you can bend it this way, that way, make it more useful. It was, unbendable. What? سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.